That's mine. There we go. All righty. Good evening, everybody. It is now 6:03. Today, the 4th day of August of 2021. I hereby call this meeting to order. If we can have a roll call.
Councillor John Ritchie,
Present.
Councillor Manuel J. Martinez,
Present.
Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez,
She just texted. She'll be here shortly. She's leaving work.
Committee Chair Justin Salazar Torres,
Present. Looks like we've got ourselves a quorum. Now, councilors, would you, being that she is on her way, would you mind waiting just a few minutes until she gets here?
No, I'm fine with that, sir.
All righty. We've got ourselves a quorum, but we'll just take a pause right there before we approve the agenda. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience and your indulgence.
A wise man said, "Oh, we have a lot of time."
Before the chair says. You're out of order.
All righty, good evening, everybody, and we're back. We are on our item for the determination of a quorum. And if we can go ahead and call on each council just for the purposes of clarity, just
Counselor John Ritchie,
We're taking
roll call, yes.
Okay. Present.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
Present?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Honored to be here.
Committee Chair Justin Salazar Torres.
Present. Looks like we've got ourselves a quorum. Counselors, before you is the approval of the agenda. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? And it's at your leisure for an approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All righty, we've got a motion from Counselor Manny Martinez and a second from Counselor John Ritchie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like we've got ourselves an agenda. Do we have anybody signed up for public comments?
We don't.
And it doesn't look like there's anybody on Zoom either, so we will move on. We will move on to committee member comments. And with that said, we'll start with Counselor Ritchie, since he's a little spicy today. So Counselor Ritchie, floor is yours,
These
sir.
are- At this moment, they are running smoothly and I have no concerns at this moment.
Thank you, Counselor Ritchie. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
I just do have a concern about the incident that happened at Apple Valley, and I hope that we're dealing with that the best that we can, and I hope that we're able to handle that in a really positive way for the community. It's really sad what's going on. I do have a concern with some of the stuff that has happened. I recently made a call to 911 because I was at a gas station in Murphy's. This lady drove in. At first, I thought she was an elderly person because she drove in very slow and looked like she was going to hit the pump. So I thought it seemed like somebody to me that could be having a medical episode of some kind. But then as I put my gas and stuff, I realized that this lady was out of it. And I got very concerned and I watched her for a while. I walked over to the car and she was like slumped over and I thought she could be having a medical issue. And then she would like come in and out of it. And I was like, what the heck? So as it turned out, after watching her for a while, I landed up calling 911. And I let the gentleman know that I felt that she was probably inebriated and that she probably should not be on the road. So they actually sent a couple of officers out there. One of them was one of the female officers, the one that has a husband that's at Rio Riva Sheriff. I don't know her name though. What's her name? Yes, and the other one was Mr. Derek Valdez. And both of them just handled the situation so professionally and so nice. They landed up arresting the girl, but man, they were on top of it. And I just want to tell you that, you know what, when you actually see the system work the way that it's supposed to work, and you get somebody like that off the road and you get them off the street, that's awesome. That's exactly the way things should be working. The only concern that I had is when I called 911, I asked the dispatcher, did she want the license plate number? And she said no. So that sort of surprised me that she would not want the license plate number in case that lady was not there when they got there, that there would be no other way to trace her other than through that plate. So that's something that probably should come up at a 911 meeting, that we should try and gain as much information as we can from the callers when they call, because I think it's pertinent to stopping that type of a situation had they not gotten there before the lady was stopped there at the gas station. So other than that, that's the only thing that I have. But when it does work out the way it's supposed to, and they get the call and they respond to the call and they get the arrest and they get the person off the road, man, that's a beautiful thing. And I'm just hopeful that we can continue to do those kinds of things here in our community.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. I know that there was a tactical effort that was made by the city recently, I believe a couple of days ago. there was a lot of social media pictures of stuff going on near Center Market. And I don't know if you're able to elaborate on that or not, but I hope everybody was safe, whatever that encounter was that happened that day. That's the first thing, is to hope that everybody's safe. Second of all, I too had an event happen, and I just want to commend Chief Padilla's men on their professionalism and everything they did. Just note, my better half ended up breaking her hip at work. She fell, and I have to say these guys were right spot on and very professional, and I thank them for everything they did. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Counselors, anything else? All righty, we will move on to matters from the chair. I just want to tell Chief Padilla, I saw the photos and so forth from the, I believe, hazmat training or hazmat course that you all did at Lano, which was great. Nice to see that happening. Commend Chief Jimenez and the PD. We had a situation there in Calle Como Vista. It was about 1:45 in the morning. My neighbor called and she was out of town and said, Justin, can you go check on my house? My alarm's going off. The motion sensor went off, this was 1:45 in the morning, right? Granted, the alarm company is the one that dispatched the police department, but it was a matter of 4 minutes. They were there, I was there, and the quick response. Granted, I had the key to my neighbor's house, so we went in, checked everything out, windows, doors, but great job. I don't know, Chief Padilla, if you heard my compliment, but I gave you one before that. Okay. You guys doing the hazmat training or course up at Lano. That was nice to see photos and that come out on the Lano website and so forth. So good job. Sure. Thank you, sir. All righty. That's all I've got. The next item on our agenda, council, before you is the approval of minutes for our Public Safety Committee meeting for July the 7th of 2021.
Motion to approve, sir.
If we may get a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor. We got a motion from Counselor Manny Martinez and a second from Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like we've got ourselves a set of minutes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is our discussion recommendation items to full council. This is a discussion of application to the New Mexico State Transportation Commission for the OHV access to state-owned highways within the city limit. We have a city manager that will be presenting. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the Public Safety Committee, Chief Padilla, Chief Jimenez, Deputy Chief, members of the public. So I just want to give a quick update. So we did finalize the OHV ordinance that was presented last council meeting with all amendments that was requested by the governing body. All the details were entered. So now the ordinance is ready to move forward, which was one of the requirements in regards to filling out the application with the State Transportation Commission. And I'll just read from pretty much kind of like the requirements for the application. And it says an ordinance or resolution that the requesting entity has passed in confirming the Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Act, allowing for the operation of ROVs within its jurisdiction and including as requirements qualifiers set forth in subsection E 4 of 66-3-1001 and subsection C of 66-1-3-1011 and mandatory safety restraints for ROV operations and passengers. So basically what it's saying is that we have to present our ordinance, which it meets all the requirements that the states having that we have in our ordinance. So that's item number one of the main items that it's asking. The other item that I'd like to point out, number 8, it says documented community and law enforcement support for the route designation. So I think this is kind of where we get our PD and members of the community, I guess the OHV community that have been really adamant about this ordinance to come together and really come together and find a real designation and figure out which highways they want to submit into this application. I guess with the requirements that or the recommendation that I would see is less is more, right? And I think the main street that I would probably recommend to put in this application, and Chief Jimenez can chime in or anybody else, is Fairview Lane, because that would give full access to all members of the community from east to west. But like, again, it's up to the State Transportation Commission to approve that, because in this sense, they want, excuse me, my computer here. There we go. They want streets that can get the vehicles from point A to point B, right? Not for cruising around town, but to get them from one destination to their trails. And I believe that Fairview Lane does that. So to provide access to on the west side of town to 31 Mile Road, because it converts to Industrial Park Road, which is a city street, which they can allow to access. And then, of course, Fairview at the four-way intersection will go into Fairview Extension, which is also a city street, and they can cross over, I believe, State Road 106 and right on the shoulder, and then access the BLM lands in that area. So I think that would be a key area. But then again, I'd open the floor to the public or PD in regards to what other streets they might recommend on that sense. But I think less is more, because the State Transportation Commission will look at it and it's all or nothing, right?
Right.
Whatever we put, and if they see something that they don't like, they're not gonna nitpick. It's okay, well, we approve this, but not that. It's pretty much all or nothing. So with that said, I stand for any questions.
Sure. So again, just to reiterate, counselors, just so if we recall, we had spoke of obviously North Railroad Avenue is a city-owned street. So for folks on the west side of town, all they would have to do is cross Paseo to access North Railroad Avenue and then hit Fairview and go to whatever destination that would be. And the law does permit that to right the shoulder, just to a quick crossover to do whatever they please. So again, that's all within the state law. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
I want to agree with City Manager Martinez concerning this issue. I think that if we just show the state that what our intent is to allow for the access to these trails, then I feel like it's a higher possibility that they could okay this. So I agree that his thinking of keeping that east to west open and then utilizing the city streets. The only other piece that I would possibly think about adding is that North McCurdy sector that belongs to the state, or the South McCurdy sector that belongs to the state. I'm sorry, you're correct. So that there's that access on that side to travel north to south or south to north. And then on this side, of course, we have Coronado and Railroad. So I think those are sufficient and just having to cross the main roads. But on that side, I would consider that other piece just to connect the whole community all the way to Fairview. That's about it. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilor Ritchie.
I just had concerns of San Pedro. How are they where are they? They're like landlocked.
Without using Riverside Drive.
Right. Or even catching, they would have to catch a little bit of.
Chief, City Manager, any suggestions for San Pedro area?
And looking at the map, I really can't see a
Right.
quick solution to this because it's pretty much surrounded by state highways, right? Unfortunately, we can provide access to the majority of the city.
Right.
It's unfortunate, but I mean, like I say, if we want to involve in acquire more state roads into this, the possibility it'll lower the risk or lower the chances of getting approved.
Right.
That's
Lower San Pedro Road is a state road, correct? Or is it a
that's correct. It's a state road,
state road?
and so is Upper San Pedro, and then it eventually crosses over to some city roads up there, but primarily
Right, yeah, I was gonna say
primarily
crosses
it's state
over.
road.
You would have to go over the bridge and then hit and go around. But again, the quickest way by means possible is what the state law states. So I think, they'd be all right. just as long as people are educated on the law and what it states. on
And
that
that's,
end.
and that's only city up to where Pajarito is, right? Because once it's past Pajarito, it's only county.
Right. Right. And again, I would have to agree, less is more, but I would concur with Councilor Pegasus Martinez on South McCurdy. But for those residents on Pedro, again, we reiterate the state law in the sense that the quickest route possible, right? So they could, in essence, cross the bridge and hit that side of town on the west side and hit city streets to get on Railroad or.
I think the same issue will also, like in San Pedro, will also be with Ranchitos, because you're gonna have the same issue where they would have to use Riverside Drive to get to Fairview Lane,
Well, they would just use, no, not
or
necessarily.
go down to McCurdy Road.
Well, if
for
we're
us.
talking on the west side of Ranchitos.
Yeah,
Right. But then they would just cross over and get onto McCurdy, or there's a bunch of little veins that drive through there. So, Councilor Ritchie?
And my opinion would be, especially like San Pedro, that they would get on Santa Clara Ridge. As long as they're getting to the west side to work the backside to get out to 31 Mile. As long as they're not doing anything, I mean, officers aren't gonna, pull, I mean, only if you see something wrong that they're gonna get pulled over.
And part of the line items, Councilor Ritchie, that city manager, or we've all stated, is there's rules to this, right? So we have to educate the public, let them know what they cannot do, et cetera. I think, what is it, for a year? Or what was it that Desi had stated? His name's Desi, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It
Desi
stated,
Ortiz.
those are all things that I think we can all tackle during the public education part of it.
Yeah.
Councilor Manny Martinez.
maybe something to look at into the future would be maybe to make a trail, collaborate with the Pueblos and make a trail along the river.
Mhm.
That would be able to tie in San Pedro all the way to the Fairview Lane Bridge and come up in that area, and then be able to, if there was a trail along the river, that might be something to see if we can collaborate with something like that.
Right, and I'm gonna say again, less is more, so I agree with just Fairview and South
Future.
McCurdy for now, but then on the flip side, those, we also, I think, should think as a committee on penalties for those that, I mean, there are gonna be those that go and try and park at Lowe's and go and do, that's our responsibility as well, to make sure
Going to
that,
Sonic, going to,
right, that we do enforce that part of it, by educating first, and then, of course, second go round, third go round, then it's time to lay down the gavel, right? So something we can think of, city manager, on penalties, if the state does require us to think of or come up with resolutions, ordinances regarding that itself, please let me know.
does the city already have penalties as far as that's concerned?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we do have an ATV ordinance right now, but as you all know, that only talks about, four-wheelers, three-wheelers, those things,
Straddled vehicles.
right? So there's something that we can definitely add and amend. I think that would probably be the easiest, is just to amend that ordinance. But there is one in there with the ATVs.
And we already have our OHV ordinance as well, so maybe we can add a penalty section to it, amend it later on. But something we can, again, comb through and work on. Councilor Pegasus Martinez, I'm sorry, you had your hand up.
No, I'm listening to you. I'm fine. Continue.
Honorable City Manager?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to reiterate another portion of this, recommendation for the application. It says we also have to demonstrate that the designated route is clearly for recreational access for ROVs in the public interest, and not for the sole benefit of any private interest business organization.
Right. And in this case, of course, Fairview. Councilor Pegasus Martinez?
So one key component I think that should probably be added to that application is that the city will do its due diligence to mark these streets so that people know this is one that you can ride on. This is one that you cannot ride on. So that there's no confusion with anybody that is even not from here or from in the greater Espanola area that's not really understanding. It's easy for us to sit in here and say South McCurdy to North McCurdy and
Right.
Coronado and everything. It's very familiarized to all of us. But the majority of people that don't live in these areas are not really going to understand that. So I think it's very important for the city to set aside a certain amount of budget for this situation in itself, so that we have the signage to show people access to get to the trail only. You can't be riding up and down that state road just tearing it up because you think it's cool. Access to the trails only, and that's what it has to be.
Right, and Desi did state that Game and Fish does provide funding for signage and all that and so forth, once we get this going on. Councilor Manny Martinez.
Two things, meaning that, like you said, going to the trails and only, which means not riding them to Walgreens to go shopping or to go to CVS and then going home back utilizing these vehicles. But also because it's also, although it's a state road, it's also a residential area. Do we need to do a public hearing for those people that live in that area to allow them to speak as far as allowing these vehicles on that road?
I think that was already tackled when we did the ordinance, because it was published. It was, we had a public hearing for it. All that was already presented for the public. And of course, we already have that ordinance allowing them on city streets. So that's already done.
You're correct, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate on that.
Right. And then, the other thing, and, I know you said not to stop at CVS and stuff like that, just to go back home. That's understood. But for example, when we go riding, we'll like to stop and get a few waters and stuff like that and head straight up to 31 or whatever. So keep that in mind, keep that open mind that people do stop, get snacks and so forth before they head out on a trail. So.
Are we looking for a motion to forward to full council, sir?
Do we need, I guess would be my question, city manager, a approval from the governing body on these streets and the application?
Oh, Mr. Chair, members of the Public Safety Committee, no, that would not be necessary. So we just go ahead and proceed and file this application. We just I wanted to bring it to present to you after we got the ordinance fully with all the changes and recommendations amended to it. So now we can fully proceed, because that was one of the main things that was holding us up, was the approval of that ordinance to go ahead and proceed on this application. So we'll go ahead and proceed on that, and the governing body is not required to make a motion on this.
And again, that ordinance was already approved and taken care of, so that's all squared away, right? Okay, just making sure, because you keep saying approval of the ordinance, so I'm wondering. So, okay, it's already done. So councilors, if you have any recommendations for the application, please speak now, or however, hold your peace. If not, city manager, you're welcome to run with it, sir.
Absolutely. And so just to make the clarification, so on the application, we want to, of course, get Fairview Lane and South McCurdy. Is that correct?
Correct.
This application. Okay, we will proceed with that. I will coordinate with Chief Jimenez and staff to go in and proceed with this application.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Do appreciate that. All righty. Next item on our agenda is our department reports. We have with us Project Race, and with us we have Miss Veronica.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Any questions in regards to Project Race? For the
Councilor
month of
Peggy
June?
Martinez.
I have more comments concerning the backpack giveaway and all the hard work that these ladies were able to put together. It was very, very nice to see all the entities that were out there. We had that touch a truck where kids got to interact with the National Guard. They got to sit in that helicopter, which must have been a rush. I mean, imagine being a kid and getting to sit in a helicopter like that. No
I'm
lie.
not excited.
So just that in itself, we had we can get pre-kinder out there also. We had Shoes for Shorty that were out there. That's an entity from the Rock who are purchasing shoes for needy kids for the school year. And they plan on making that a big event every year, and they're always looking for donations. So that's a really cool thing to happen. I really could not thank you guys enough for the event, and also include Justine Valencia and her family and what they were able to do. And I'll just tell you that the Valencia family are just incredible people. They actually loaded these backpacks. These ladies actually put them in their vehicle, took them down to the convento, got them all ready, and they were there feeding people. They were responsible for the food, and they covered it. And they're just an incredible family with a big heart for our community. And just really feel like we as a council should recognize that. And just be grateful to God for every family that was touched with these supplies. And given that Ralph and them had the one prior in the week before, the need was still evident. And one thing that struck me that day was how many grandparents in our community are raising their grandchildren. That blew me away. I just could not fathom how many people are dealing with that situation and how many of them are on the retirement income and on their social security income. And they're still dealing with these kids in high energy and everything, and they're trying to keep up with them and doing the best they can. And I really feel like Espanola as a city and as a community is dealing with that at a higher level than a lot of other places. And I feel like it's important that we try and do something at the state legislative level to help these people to get clothing allowances and to get food stamp allowances for these kids, because a lot of them, once they get guardianship, they're no longer qualified for any of these state things. And yet these grandparents are taking on this responsibility at their own cost, with their own time, out of nothing but love. And they're hurting. So I really feel like we as a council need to really get behind some kind of a bill that supports these grandparents, because they are everywhere. And it's something that we need to do because these kids need our help. So I just want to say thank you to you guys for what you guys did.
Thank you.
Incredible event. There were some backpacks left over that were delivered to the elementaries. And
There
there's
is
still
still
a few left
backpacks.
over.
There still is. Throughout the day today, I was able to give some to some families that did come by. I know City Hall sent them from here to over there, which was a great thing. We do still have a few more left over. I know the girls counted, which were our interns that counted, and it was 241. But since then, it's probably been
Probably
lower.
come down a little
Yeah.
bit. I just have to tell you, man, these kids were so thrilled to death to get their backpack, and they started looking in it and see what was there. And it was awesome. They had door prizes, they had pizzas, they had haircuts, they had probably over 100 gift certificates to hand out. And at one point, they were calling numbers from tickets and people weren't looking at their tickets. So she just decided to just go pass them out all over the place. And these kids were just like thrilled to death. They're going to get a pizza after this. It was so fun to watch. But I'll tell you, you know what? The community really came together. They got a lot of different donations. There was $8,000 that was given up for this. It came from Zia Credit Union, Del Norte, Hemes Co-op, the union in Los Alamos tried to get on board, but they had an issue that they couldn't, but they promised to be on board next year. I had personal friends that just wrote a check. It was just amazing how many people came together in this initiative and what a success it was and what the need that was filled is incredible. And I just want to say that it's something that we need to build on and we need to continue because I feel like it's that important.
Most definitely.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, counselors, any other questions, comments, concerns for
Well,
Project Race?
I don't know if we can say anything more than that. I think Counselor Martinez said it all. And I have to say, the pictures I've seen, and it was a beautiful event. It's great to see what you are doing for these children. They definitely did. And Counselor Martinez is very correct when saying that these grandparents need all the support we can give them. I can say every day, some grandparent comes into my office trying to make some sort of arrangement or contract to help them on the electric bill. And it's always the same story. Mijito, I'm watching my grandchildren now, I'm taking care of them. And now I have this much more expense that I have to pay and I can't pay my electric bill, I can't pay this. And it's hard to hear all that because they shouldn't be having to do that at that point in their life. But I guess, like you said, because of the love that they have for their kids and their grandkids and their family, you know, what do? I know that if I had to, I would, no doubt would I take care of my grandkids, and because that's what you do. But just doing that little thing, I mean, it might seem like a little, but it's not. Trust me, when it comes to school supplies, I know all of us have been there. He's kind of starting out a little bit. But man, when you have to pay for school supplies on top of clothes, on top of everything, it adds up like fast and it can get expensive. So giving these children and these grandparents that help means an awful lot. So I thank you so much for all that work that you did.
Thank you.
All I want to add to it is that it took two events and to support our community. And thank God we have people in our community that step up and do that for them. And to Counselor Martinez's concerns with grandparents, we should reach out to our legislature and see what we can do and meet with them and see what they can do for us, help, what kind of legislation we can get together with them.
And if I might chime in on that note, I got a 17-year-old, Councilor Manny Martinez, so,
Oh, sorry.
oh, man. But anyways, I remember growing up in Pajarito and, those programs still are in effect today. And correct me if I'm wrong, but counselors, teachers can pinpoint students that are in need.
Yes.
That, et cetera. And then they do send, I remember receiving a tube of like Slim Jim, stuff like that they send. And so there are programs and state funded grants and things that are out there. So, if you counselors or anybody know of any children that are in school that are in need of help, that grandparents are in, et cetera, bring it forth to their counselors, because their counselors do have those resources to pinpoint and send, hey, here's a little goodie bag with some food for the week, et cetera. Because again, I remember receiving one of those. So just so you know, those programs are out there. And there is a lot of monies out there for them already.
Yes.
So it's good to know.
I just wanted to add also that Los Cumbres does do grandparents raising grandchildren. So I will be collaborating with them to see if they also need backpacks before we don't have any more. And hopefully we can reach out to those ones that are in need of those as well.
I really feel like this is something that we need to take to the state legislature. I really feel like the state needs to be aware of when a grandparent takes the kids in, they're doing a service for all of us, by keeping the kids together for one, and by keeping them in our culture for two, and for keeping them here in our community for three, and all of those things. And I'm sure it's not only something that's happening in Española. I'm sure that all along the state, there's thousands and thousands of grandparents in the same boat. So I'm hopeful that this is something that we can really concentrate on moving through the legislature and making some funding available for these grandparents that are making that sacrifice.
Most definitely.
And the excitement thing, you're getting ready to go back to the schools, right? Now that
Yes.
school started
Starting September.
in September.
Yes.
Nice to hear that.
City manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And also, just to add on to Project Race, it's unfortunate to share this news, but Miss Justine Valencia submitted her resignation and she moved on to bigger and better things. So she'll be working with the Carlos Vigil Middle School, pretty much doing the same job that she was doing here for the city. So I want to thank Miss Valencia for the service and time that she provided to Project Race into the city. We're very beneficial and proud that we have Miss Marufo here to hold the fort down and be strong to continue this until we're able to fill that position. We currently have it advertised for the Project Race manager. I believe that Miss Marufo and Chief Jimenez will be attending HIDA meeting in Albuquerque tomorrow representing the city. So good luck to both of you in representing the city. And I just want to also mention that we're going to get HIDA involved in the hiring process that way because they're providing the funding for these positions. So I think it's positive that we bring them involved, get them involved in making a good selection for the future person for this position.
Thank you, Senor. Counselors, anything else for Project Race? All righty. Ms. Raga, anything else you'd like to present for the committee?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you so much for stepping up. We appreciate you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
All righty. Next up in the hot seat is the Police Department. Chief, floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. You all have these stats in front of you, so I will pause at this time if you all have any questions. I will let you all know that, as you can see, we did have a spike of calls the month of June. It was about 200 more than we had in months past. So it was a beginning of a busy summer for us.
All righty. Counselors, any questions, comments, concerns regarding the PD stats?
My concern is that it just seems like our community is getting more violent in a very real way and very quickly. So I'm always concerned about that. It seems like things have escalated. I don't know what it's about. Do you have any idea what's going on or what's making things worse or what's happening?
Mr. Chair, member of the committee, Councilwoman Martinez, it's on the uptick nationwide. You know, the crime is elevating at a high rate. I would like to think it's a number of things, you know, the methamphetamine drug was explosive this last year. As you all know, the difference between an opioid and a upper or a methamphetamine is night and day. You know, the people that we're used to dealing with on an opioid base, which brings them down and kind of calms them. Now we're dealing with people that excite them, and now they're willing to fight and ready to fight. Excuse me, my glasses keep fogging up. So, you know, and I think just with everything that went on this last year with COVID, you know, opening the doors and having people go back out into the public, I think that was another issue. And, you know, then politics, whichever side you're on, whatever you want to believe, I think there is a big difference in what's happening around the nation. You know, there's so many different sensitive topics that are happening right now in our nation. So it's a multiple issues going on out there. But for our small community, I do want to tell you that our officers haven't skipped a beat. You know, they've been working with or without the masks. You know, we're asking them to, you know, enforce or educate masks. We're asking them to deal with, you know, drug overdoses, you know, domestic violence, suicides, homicides. You know, we're doing the whole realm of it. And, you know, that kind of comes to my topic today was, you know, we need more officers. We need more officers to be proactive, to do those things, because as you look at it, and we've been talking about this, myself and Deputy Chief Jones subscribed to Police One and the International Associations of Chiefs of Police. Every major, or every city, every police department, they're short staffed. Every police department has a high crime rate, and every police department is dealing with narcotics and gun violence. So, you know, the only way that I know to attack it is by education and, you know, old school police work, which is getting more officers on the streets. So one of the other things that I did want to talk about is we're trying to get grant funds to do what's called a smart policing grant. So that way we can place cameras throughout the city. You've heard of license plate readers. Some of the cities have them throughout the state. Those are things that we're trying to bring to the valley right now. And it's been proven to cut down in some areas 70% of the violent crime. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. Of course, we need money to do so.
What kind of funding would something like that require, do you know?
Right now, we are in the process of, so we're doing what's called a pilot program. We're trying to get that up and running. The pilot program is free for about 3 to 4 months. They will give us the data that we need to bring to you all to say, hey, this is what we want. What do you all think? The funding per camera, I'm thinking, is about $3,000 per camera. That's installation, data, software, training, etc. You know, we're actually going after grants of about $250,000, $500,000, so that way we can get as many cameras as we can throughout the city and grant fund that for about 3 years.
So 3,000 per camera, and those cameras are monitored in-house? They're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
monitored by another entity, they're monitored by somebody that sits at a desk and watches all day?
They'll be monitored by the police department. It'll
They
go
do
directly
record
to,
so that you can go back and look at what vehicles were in the area or stuff like that.
yes, ma'am. We'll get a presentation for you all, but the MDTs that you all were graciously helped us to achieve, those will go directly to the MDTs for the officers.
I really feel like this is something that I've been wanting to see in this community for a long time. I think it's a worthwhile investment when you consider 3,000 per camera. that stays up there for the whole year. I mean, that's not that much money when you consider it, you know what I mean? And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think there's key areas in our community that are high crime. That Walmart area and all that area being one of the biggest, I'm sure you guys get a lot of calls over there.
Yes,
And then the second area, of course, the parks area, the
Absolutely.
park down here and the park over here, of course. So I'm very interested in forwarding this initiative. I really, really feel like this is something that could possibly help the crime here in our community. If people feel like they're being recorded, maybe it helps them to behave a little bit better.
I agree. Thank you, ma'am. Once we do the system and we get everything up and running, we'll invite you all for a sample.
Counselor Richie.
Yeah, I just wanted more details on so they're gonna give us a demo basically to show us what it's gonna do, and it's a 3 months?
So by the time they put the last camera up, we'll have 90 days from that point to test it out and evaluate it.
And how many cameras are they?
Right now, we're requesting 9.
9
Yes,
cameras.
yes,
So
sir.
we'll talking about the areas that were,
Exactly. So
Our
we're kind of being secretive on some of the areas.
Right.
Of course, I'm sure you all understand why, but we're trying to strategically place them in the place or in the areas that we feel would benefit the city the most.
okay.
Follow up on that, Chief.
Sir.
Can we get that scheduled for our next public safety meeting presentation?
I will definitely try, sir. The gentleman is actually here today installing some of the cameras. So we'll have that person, a representative, try to do it through Zoom because they're out of Arizona.
Okay, great, no problem. And so cameras are being installed. Okay,
As we
great.
speak.
So it's already rolling. Nice. Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, sir. Would it possible with these cameras that, let's say, after they've been placed a year, if you find that in an area, there's not really a lot of activity going on, that you can move it to another area that maybe it started to beef up criminal type of behavior?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Counselor Manny Martinez. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to place 2 or 3 that will be mobile, that we can move at any time, at any place, depending on what the statistics show, crime rate shows, and we're getting a lot of calls in that area, we can move them. So yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Nice. So Chief, now that we got you up here, just prior to the meeting, city manager was in an extensive phone call with a constituent regarding, properties that individuals are, again, homeless are going on, that are doing tents and so forth. So out of your stats, how many calls, which line item is it regarding issues like that?
So they could be a number of calls, sir, whether it's disorderly conduct, loitering, criminal trespass,
Right.
it just really depends on the time of day. We are getting multiple calls and as you all, I'm sure know, about specific areas that are private property where
Right.
we don't have any jurisdiction to go in legally and remove those people.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but regarding jurisdiction itself, unless the property owner asks you all, that falls within the jurisdiction of the city, the municipality limits, then you all can go forth and do that, right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And my question is your department, city manager, since I've got you both, are we doing anything as a city with the individuals here in town, for example, Pathways, et cetera, getting in contact with them? Because I know some issues have come up that Pathways is only open 2 days a week, and things like that. So it's starting to, people are wondering what the heck's going on. And then they're calling myself. I'm sure councilors, you guys are getting calls regarding this, wondering what the heck's going on. But again, it all falls on the actual property owners and so forth. But
Exactly.
how are we trying to bond with these groups?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So that's an excellent question. So we have made contact with Pathway Shelter, and there was a group that went out a few weeks back to assess the situation. They went and handed out pamphlets and kind of talked to the individuals out at this homeless camp off of Monterey Lane. And the consensus was they don't want to go to the Pathway Shelter. They say that it feels like jail because they have curfews, they have rules they have to follow, and if they have to follow rules, then they're not gonna stay in that place. So they rather stay where they can do what they want. And that was quoted by some of the individuals at the camp. And you're right, the shelter is open, a few days out of the week. So the Pathway Shelter has gone out there to, encourage for them to come in and utilize their facilities, but just the want is not there. Also, and as to chime in with Chief Jimenez, these are private properties. There are two specific lots that I personally have reached out to the county assessors, county clerks, county treasurers, the state environmental department, and even with a title and escrow company to determine, okay, what's our next path? Because in record, the owners of the two properties where these individuals are residing in have deceased, and there's no record of the next of kin or owner of transfer of ownership on any of these properties. There are family members, but unfortunately, there's no legal documentation. We've checked, there's no record of these properties being in probate at all whatsoever. So we have our hands tied, essentially, like Chief said, out of our jurisdiction. And I mean, I don't know if it's coincidental that they selected to choose these two properties where the property owners are dead and there's no property owner to enforce the trespass.
Right. Well, I don't believe in coincidences, but anyways.
Question, are these properties being paid their taxes? Are taxes up to date?
Thank you. Very good question, Counselor. So these two properties are in back taxes in the rears of over $6,000 each.
Good.
And one property in particular, the city has a clean lien against it for $38,000. So we're talking with our city attorney as to what our avenue is on that because of the lien that we have on one of the properties. So any avenue that we try to proceed is still a timely matter, in going through the legal processes of that.
Are they up for, sorry, Counselor, are they up for auction?
No, as last I checked a couple of weeks ago, and it's not up to the county, it's up to the state, I guess, tax and rev to determine, but they have not a notification for it to go to auction yet.
Councilor Manny Martinez, sorry about that.
Being that they are delinquent on taxes, and in this case, that property, we have a clean and lien on it, does that not give the city at least some right to do something with this?
And that's, I guess, good. Thank you. Also a good question, Councilor Martinez. So that's one of the next steps that we're looking with our legal team as to what our next option, using what leverage we can use on that avenue to get this situation addressed. But as of yet, no success yet.
All right. And City Manager, I only brought that up because of the phone call you got just prior to this committee meeting and the issues that they're facing, as well as, it terrifies me because there are a lot of new faces on the streets right now as we drive through our town. And I just fear that this is going to get worse, and our constituents that do have properties that are neighboring these things, they don't deserve this.
Well,
everybody needs help and we get that, but what avenues are there out there to combat this?
unfortunately, we are a community that gives.
Right.
And that's why we're getting more and more people here, because people here give. And I think as long as that's the issue, we'll continue to get more and more of these homeless people coming to our community. A question I have for the committee, is it time for the city to utilize the city property as a place for an encampment to get them out of these private properties? Is that something that should be considered?
So I don't know the legal aspect of this at all, City Manager, but one of the things that I've been reminded of during council meetings is the anti-donation clause and things like that, if you're letting people live on your property rent free and stuff like that. But again, that's probably something to follow with legal, and a little homework for you, Councilor Martinez. But I will reiterate, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, the last 3.5 years that we've been on council, you've stated that, donate to nonprofits, don't give, and I'll let you have the floor, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, and let you speak of your initiative that you've been preaching about.
I'm gonna ask Councilor Richie if it's okay if I go before him, because he had his hand up first.
Sure.
So the thing that I've always wanted to do is to have the city adopt a please help, don't give initiative, where we start to retrain our people about their generosity and how to direct it to sources that are more beneficial in helping these people get out of these lifestyles. But you know what city manager and what you said struck a chord with me in that these people seem like they're out there because life has handed them a bad hand and they got dealt some bad cards. But in all reality, sometimes it's a choice. And that's something that our public cannot fathom in our own minds. We just think they've had a bad luck. And I really feel like if we were to start the initiative, get on the radio, do some advertisement about not giving to these people, you're perpetrating addiction. Understand that 86% of money collected on the streets is to put back into staying high. That's a really high amount. And as long as they're getting that next fix, there's no reason for them to go to a shelter. There's no reason for them to go to the rehab. If they're staying high, that's their purpose at that point. The only time that you can consider getting straight or getting help is when you've hit bottom, you've either landed in jail, you can't get a fix there, you're hurt physically where you can't go out and hustle a fix, or some other initiative where you just get tired. And the only way to change that thinking for our community is to stop giving them the money to stay high. And people just need to understand, you're not helping these people. You're perpetrating an addiction and it has gotten worse. I feel like since Pathway House came in, I really feel like the city did an initiative here to try and help these people out of that lifestyle. I don't think one person has been saved by it. I really don't. I hope I'm wrong.
I don't know.
You're right.
I hope I'm wrong. But to me, the problem is just exploded in our face. And it's time that we make some tough calls and do something different. It's not working what we're doing.
Council Ritchie, sir.
Thank you, Chair. City Manager, since we know that no one has claim to that property, since they're all deceased, family members are not coming forth, what is the ability of the city taking eminent domain? Is that a possibility of, or what avenues for us to take over, since we also have a lien on that property or properties, so that we can then go in and control those properties?
Yes, Council Ritchie, a member of the committee. So I guess I don't have a direct answer in regards to your question. I'd have to follow up with legal. You know, it's right now they're, involved in trying to find the best solution on this, but I'm sure that they're aware of it, but I can, pass on this and,
What are the options?
and of course, some of your constituents have called me in regards to complaining about this, and some of them are, in the real estate business. And so they know all the rules and regs, and they've also recommended those avenues as well to myself. And we've worked to our attorneys, so I'm sure that they're aware of it. And, but I'll keep everybody updated in regards to the status on that, and keep chiming away on the phone calls that I receive. Because even I know that Mayor Sanchez has received emails directly to him with complaints on this situation. So, we're addressing it as we can, but it's not on the back burner. It's definitely one of our priorities with the city.
Right. And I guess just follow up on that. And again, I know you guys are approaching every situation, but maybe a state of emergency because it's a public health issue for neighboring properties and people that live next door, because again, there's no sewage, no nothing. It's a free for all, for lack of better terms. Councilor Manny Martinez.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, I'm sure that many of those ones that are complaining to you or writing to the mayor or contacting us, maybe also people that are out there giving $1 or $2 or $5 when they see these people. And they won't realize that they're the ones that can actually make the difference by stopping to do that. But
So with that said, is there anything we can do as a committee, Honorable City Manager, in essence of a resolution, et cetera, adopting some sort of, or presenting some sort of funding within our budget that can be under your purview, to do radio ads, to do newspaper ads on Please Help, Don't Give initiative that Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez has again been preaching for over the last few years, that we can do weekly, et cetera. Because I see us on Que Dice, stuff like that. So what can we do to get this going?
No, absolutely, Mr. Chair, member of the committee, to chime in, your first comment in regard to the health conditions out there. I did reach out to the environmental department, and the one thing they asked, have you reached out to the property owner? Not to be, make it a joking matter, but and I definitely will reach out, in my reports to the governing body as to the updates on this and what you as a committee or the governing body can do to support the PD, the staff and the community to move forward on this. But like I say, everything's right now is in legal. So we're waiting to see what our next avenue of approach is on this.
Okay, great. Counselors, anything else for the PD that you'd like to
I do have some updates.
go ahead, sir? The
If
floor
you
is
don't
yours.
mind, Mr. Chair, and mostly just answering questions. So first and foremost, I think we got a question from Councilwoman Martinez as to the Apple Valley incident. Our detectives and officers showed up and they did a phenomenal job on taping off the scene, and we were able to catch the suspect that same night. So he didn't enjoy any free time, and the warrant was actually filed, an arrest warrant was actually filed on him about an hour before I got here this evening. So the arrest has been made in that homicide, and our prayers and everything go out to the family. Also, Mr. Councilman Manny Martinez, the East Pueblo incident, we got a tip that there might have been a fugitive in that area, in that home. Our officers were working on some good information gathered through good policing. A lot of our officers, we're blessed to have a lot of officers that not only are from here, some of them have just built rapport with a lot of these people. So they come to us, give us information. We're working on a good tip that the fugitive was in the house. It's my understanding that while we were waiting on information to come back to us, there was about a 5-10 minute lapse, and the fugitive slipped before we were able to set a perimeter. We did make 2 arrests that day for other people. I also want to give a shout out to Hemes Co-op. Some of your coworkers were there and helped us, shut down some of the electrical in that area for that specific residence, and they were phenomenal. They stayed out there with us for about 3-4 hours. But we had a great response from agencies all the way from Albuquerque Police Department, State Police, Santa Fe County was willing to assist. It was just phenomenal. So we're still on his tracks, but it's just a matter of time. Nobody got hurt, nobody got injured, but we did make 2 arrests that day for other ones. I also wanted to just share with you all, we're going to start with the schools coming back. We're going to put an SRO back into the school. Now that we're actually going to be there full time, they're willing to pay that full time MOU. So it's going to be kind of the same thing that we did last year, with the exception of 2, it'll be 1. And they're actually going to assist us by paying overtime for sporting events and all that good stuff. So we will bring it to you all and forward it to you all when we get it. So that's one of the really good things. The other thing that we're going to be doing, and we ask for anybody that's out there that is going to set up an initiative, and we try to get it done before we had the backpack giveaway, is we were sponsored by Century Bank, and they sponsored us by purchasing some child ID safety kits. So these kits come with, name, all of that good stuff for the parent to fill out or grandparent to fill out, the guardian. And they are, in case there's a missing child, somebody who runs away or God forbid, abducted, they have that kit they can take to the police department right away with all the pertinent information. And another one goes to the Natural Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So it just helps that family to help them out. And it's something that we give away for free in these events. So we're going to start giving those away in the very near future. So hopefully we can have some more events in that area or in this area. We also are working on getting our armored police rescue vehicle. I know I had sent you all an email a while back. It's being upfitted as we speak. We actually have two film industries right now that have been knocking on our doors. One of them, as we speak, is using our armored vehicle. And in the process, they're going to transport our vehicle over here for free for us and drop it off rather than having to drive it, which is going to be a huge expense for us or cost savings for us. And then we're also, city manager is working with another film crew to film in the Espanola area at the police department. So that's going to be in the very near future. It's going to be pretty exciting. So something that we're waiting on. And then we have 2 cadets in the academy. We started with 3. One of them failed or not failed, but decided that this job wasn't for them. So they left. So we still have 2 cadets in the academy, and they should be graduating in December sometime. So we're hoping that everything goes well with them. And that is all that I have, unless you have any other questions or comments from me.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you. I just have noticed on the west side that there's been an increase in the late hours of people having their cars broken into. I don't know if that's something that's happening all over our community or if that's a certain sector around the area where I'm at.
Okay.
My car was broken into in my yard. That's never happened in my whole life.
Mhm.
So I was offended, to say the least. But I know for a fact that it's happening more and more and more. So,
Mhm.
just possibly when we get on the radio, reminding people to lock their cars at night, even though they're in their yard or whatever, those kinds of things. And then having some courtesy rounds in that area at night. I do have some film of somebody that was in the yard, so maybe I can share that with you at another time.
Please.
And then the other thing, just working with you and the municipal court, of course, on the Red Ribbon campaign coming up in October, making sure that we have officers that are willing to go into schools and do the activities with these kids. So just heads up, it's in October. Let's start looking as a committee as to some of the activities that we can do and get that going and have something really cool for our kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Counselors. Chief, I've just got one more question for you, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but are we visiting with, for example, the callers that do not call in anonymous, that do complain about transients, et cetera? Are we visiting with them, show them that we have shown up, we're assessing the situation and educating them as well as why you can't do what you?
Absolutely, sir. Every chance we get, we try to do that. As a matter of fact, Monday I worked the streets myself, and I was actually sharing with the mayor on the times that I was working the streets. I think we got 4 911 calls, all anonymous. Nobody wanted to make contact with us. We couldn't reach out to them. Every time we tried to call them back, they wouldn't answer. So those are the kind of things that we're really asking the public, please stick around. Please share your information. At that point, if you want to stay anonymous with the officer, we definitely will, but at least make contact with the police officers. So that way we have some sort of probable cause or reasonable suspicion to make contact with those people.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Have a good night.
You as well.
Next up under department reports is Fire Chief Padilla.
Mr. Chair, members of Public Safety Committee, stats are up. Any questions?
Any questions, comments, concerns, councilors regarding the fire department stats?
How did the 4th of July go?
4th of July went very, very well. We did learn on some new redirection on the fireworks. Hopefully we can straighten that out for next year. But 4th of July went fine. We did have some rain right before that. So things were looking pretty good.
Councilors, any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, Chief, you may proceed.
As Chief Jimenez has stated, we did have an uptick in calls in July. We have been getting a lot of overflow from Espanola Ambulance, and picking up that overflow, treating people and taking them to the hospital. So as you can see, it's 77% of the national average is 70% of our calls are rescue calls. We're up 7%, a little more, but they've been handling it pretty well. Also, speaking of the call down in Apple Valley, that was kind of tough. And I spoke with my staff that was there. I went down there, and I did. It was a tough call for law enforcement and for fire. I won't speak about it, but that was a little different than what we usually deal with emotionally. Other than that, those are our stats. Excuse me earlier, Mr. Chair, I was not paying attention, but we did go up to the Hazmat Challenge. We were invited like 3 weeks prior, 2 weeks prior. We did put a team together and we went. This is something that we had done throughout the past. Back in, I think the last time we went was 2008, and we were always in the top 5. We've taken second, and some of these large hazmat teams from Sandia, National Labs, Intel, Phoenix Intel, Albuquerque, Farmington, Albuquerque Fire, Santa Fe Fire, Midwest City, Oklahoma, Houston Fire. We beat those guys with our technique, and how good we are at it. As the Espanol Fire Department is changing, we have a lot of new staff, younger guys coming up through the ranks, and this was something I said, if you want to go, let's go. And I went with them this time, and we had a really good time. We did a podium. We came in third, but there was only 3 teams. But we missed second by actually by 2 points. Okay, they did have an obstacle course at the end of the challenge. This is phenomenal training that you cannot get anywhere else in the country. And it was just due to COVID that they had shortened down their teams, staffing issues. But we will be planning on, we put together a good team. So we'll be going again next year.
Counselor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, good job of taking your team up there, and just experience. And next year they might pull out a first place.
Would be nice.
Yeah, and again, all that opportunity that they can have to build upon their training, their experience. You just say third. You don't have to say there was 3 teams only. It just, we got third. That's it. We'll take it.
I thought that would be kind of funny to say that in there,
but we came in third. So a question I have on the rescue and medical services since we're backing up the Espanola ambulance service, are we able to charge?
No, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, no, we're not able to charge. What we're classified as a rescue company, right? A certified rescue truck. Our protocol is in dire need only, life or limb, or if the EMT feels there's an imminent transport, or by the medical director or medical control from the hospital, or Espanola ambulance says we can't make it, can you go and transport? And we do not charge for that. That is a discussion that myself and our EMS coordinator have been talking about. And that's where it leads to my next bullet is the staffing. Like I said before, we have not hired in the fire department since 2008, 2009. And that's where we're hurting is with our staffing. And we need to build that so we can take care of these things. I do not want to run into the situation where we have to take over our EMS immediately because Espanola ambulance pulls out or they don't want to do it anymore. And then we're gonna have to do it, right? So we've talked about asking for me and the EMS coordinator have talked about going to the PRC and asking because they hold their certificate of necessity and it's like their area to explain why, at least if we transport, we can bill for that service.
And a follow-up, if we were able to bill half of those out of 70, 30 some calls, that would probably pay for somebody. I would think if it was insurance.
It would. If we're looking at it as a business point, if we could add more staffing and have a full-time transfer truck and a full-time response truck, we could actually probably take transfers out of this hospital or out of Taos and look at it as a business. We're gonna, those are where the doctors sign off as this is a certificate of necessity, that it is a medical necessity to transport. So the insurance company is going to pay for it. So, I mean, that's something that we've discussed, but like I said, that's where we're at with the staffing issue. We are in dire need to start upticking this staffing, and not just for that, but for safety reasons. When these guys are, when they've gone into a fire and they're coming back out, they need to be rehabbed. They need to prepare their bodies to go back in, and they're not. They're going right back in, and they're very good at it. I have to say they're very, very good at it.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Well, I had a question concerning the fire alarms. How many of those fire alarms are to the same place, and are we getting to the point where we're almost to charge somebody for those?
I'm waiting at this point to get this fire marshal hired, as well as one of our other positions. And some of those tasks are taken off of me. So I can give it to somebody to where they are checking those alarms every day in the computer. And okay, well, we've been there 3 times. They've had their 3 free. Now you're going to be getting charged. It's again, I don't have an administrative assistant. It's just me right now. So I'm trying to keep up with all of it.
So the other thing that I had a question about, Mr. Padilla, is when you say we haven't hired since 2008, we've had hires, we just haven't grown the department.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. We
So it's a little like, I'm like, wait a minute, they have hired. So
Yeah.
I knew what you were trying to say, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll explain myself. In 2008, we brought up our staffing to 15 and deputy chief or a fire chief at that point. So 16, right? So now we're going to have 15, 16, 17, 18. And then everybody needs to be on the line. So if something does happen, we can fill in and be able to be extra people out.
so
in the
we
field.
just haven't grown the department from then.
Correct,
We
ma'am.
have had new hires. correct?
Yes, ma'am. We just haven't grown from the 15.
Thank you.
Counselors.
Real quick, we got our grant for a new rescue truck. That is in the process of happening right now. And hopefully we will have it. It's just been really trying to get chassis. The chips haven't been out to put in these trucks. So hopefully that will be in. We do have a 1992 truck, old truck that works very well due to the fact that it was a special vehicle project grant truck. I did call EMS Regions 3 with Donnie Roberts that if a new service out in a rural area that needs a truck, we just have it there. We're not using it. So hopefully we can either due to it being a special vehicle project truck that was given to us back in 2003. Hopefully we can give it to somebody that can use it.
Follow up, just one other comment. I know you mentioned about getting some hazmat training. I know that the building that the city purchased on the other side of town, that was the old Forest Service building. On the back of there, they had a certified hazmat building that was separate from the building. So I think it's important that the city continue to upkeep that certification for that little building in case there's ever a hazmat issue.
I will look into it, ma'am.
Yeah.
Capital outlay money, La Jolla remodel has been it's been a task due to COVID. We had it ready to go. Then material skyrocketed and now we don't even come close to finish getting it taken care of. The state fire marshal has grants out. I met with the state fire marshal this week. There's a grant out for 400,000, up to 400,000 for to add on that. So I believe that if we have La Jolla shovel ready, I really do think that we'll get that money to either remodel that station or do a demo and put a new one up. Personally, me, if I could find out who owns that property across the street, I would love to keep La Jolla as a storage and build a new station right across the street. So I got a bunch of stuff going on. So hopefully I can make something work with that. It was turned over to me when I took over, and I'm up for the challenge.
All righty, councilors, any other questions, comments, concerns for Chief Padilla? Honorable City Manager, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to add on with Chief Padilla. So we, as all you are aware of, the resolution passed for us to acquire the National Guard Armory. And the full transfer will happen the beginning of 2022, the full transfer. But we've had some issues where housing some of our fire equipment at the Hunter Ford building, we've experienced some break-ins, and they've acquired and taken some valuable equipment off of the chief's trucks. So we reached out to the National Guard Armory if there was any way that we can possibly utilize part of that facility early. So we generated a memorandum of understanding, and we got it fully executed this past week to be able to move some of Chief's equipment up there for securing it better. So I think Chief Padilla and his crew went out to clean it and prep it today. So hopefully that equipment will be safely stored in the next few weeks.
Thank you, sir. Councilors, any other questions, comments, concerns? All righty. Chief, anything else, sir?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Be
You
safe.
guys have a good night.
Appreciate you. Good night. All righty. Next up under our department reports is Municipal Court. We have with us Honorable Judge Martin Martinez. Senor.
Mr. Chair, council members. I'd like to begin by, first of all, inviting the citizens of the valley to join us in our cleanup day. Cleanup day is going to be held on August 21st, 2021 at 8 a.m. It's an initiative by the Municipal Court, and for information, they can contact Marcos Armijo, our coordinator, at 505-747-6032 or 505-692-0394. There will be refreshments and lunch for participants, and we will be providing all of the materials and supplies necessary for the cleanup. Now, you folks have the our report for June. May I approach?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
In reviewing the report, I realized that our data system is not doing us any, is not helping us in terms of our compiling data for our community service program. So what I've done, what we've done is we've created our own system for reporting our community service data. And from now on, you will be receiving this report on a monthly basis. If you look at the first page of the report that we normally submit, for June, it was reported that we had a total of $128 worth of community service. I divide that by 750, and you see what you get. That unfortunately is generated by our obsolete sleuth system. Our data system is approximately 20 to 22 years old, and we're looking into addressing that problem. It will be a couple of weeks before we come up with some alternatives, but that will be a topic for a different day. So now let me explain what we've done with our new community service spreadsheet. The municipal court actually serves not only the city, but we also assist the surrounding courts. For example, in June, we assisted the Santa Fe Magistrate Court, the Rio Arriba Magistrate Court, and the Adult Probation Office. What that means is these entities do not have community service programs. So what they do is they contact our community service director. They send us their community service participants, and then we coordinate with them to let them know how the participants are doing. We send them daily schedules of their participants' participation. So this schedule, if you see, we've got a total of 143 hours of actual community service performed in the month of June. Of that, 61 hours were performed by Española participants, 40 by Santa Fe, 30 by Rio Arriba, and 12 by adult probation. So from now on, our monthly report will break our community service in that way. Now, at the very bottom is where we actually break down the in lieu of, which was I mentioned before, because we get two types of community service participants: those that are there due to mandatory community service judgments by the court, and those that are there who wish to participate in community service in lieu of fines. Well, interestingly enough, for the month of June, all 61 hours of community service by Española participants were for mandatory community service. There were no participants who volunteered to perform community service in lieu of fines. Okay. So moving on to the report, which there is, I've summarized some of the activities of the court. In the month of June, we handled 27 traffic cases and 33 misdemeanor cases. That's a total of new cases for the month of June. 3 cases involved resisting, evading, or obstructing. 8 cases involved shoplifting, 4 disorderly conduct, and 3 battery. It was an interesting conversation that you folks were having with the chief, because we get these cases and then we set them up for trial, and we determine the judgment, the sentence. There's with regards to our court procedures, we've completely modified our procedures for efficiency and effectiveness. At this point, we don't just deal with notices, summonses, and warrants. Although they're still a major part of our procedures, we are now phoning defendants, texting defendants, and mailing defendants. Because many of the defendants, a good portion of them, just do not have the resources in terms of, for example, we set up our case, our caseload through Zoom. Well, not occasionally, I'd say maybe 5% of defendants actually don't have the resources necessary to access the court during their scheduled trial dates. And we find this out sometimes either through our phone calls or through our texting, or they'll contact us. And when that happens, then we make different arrangements for those defendants. Now, I am still enforcing the more egregious cases. I've had one case, for example, there were 4 warrants on 4 different cases and 12 failures, 3 on each of the files. Needless to say, that individual did some time, and I made sure to impose a bond to guarantee that the next time we schedule him for trial, that he's going to appear for trial. Okay. Other I will briefly give you an overview of what we've done in the court during the past 3 to 4 months. I am just going to list them basically. And if you have any questions, be more than happy to answer them. But before I do, I'm going to refer to the first page of the report that you folks have in front of you. Okay, for the month of June, the jail time credit granted was $1,585, which means those individuals at $60 a day paid off some of their fines through jail time. Total fines collected and deposited, $3,562. Total fees collected and deposited for the month of June $1,530. Those are the court fees that if we issue a citation to a defendant or convict him, he not only pays the citation, but the $29 in court fees. So total fines, forfeits, and court costs, $5,092 for the month of June. The year-to-date, $56,337 as compared with the 2019, 2020, $75,454. In addition to that, and unfortunately, the court has lost one of its most productive workers. Our graffiti officer just quit on us. And it was an amicable departure. He just went on to different ventures. But during the month of June, he repaired or painted over something like, it's over 160 different areas within the city that he actually took care of. A total of 2,910 square feet. Gary Maestas was one of our most productive workers. We lost him. We will be advertising for that position in, I think we're starting Monday. And thanks to you folks, to the city manager, to the mayor, we will also be getting our third clerk. We also intend to start advertising for that position Monday. Other areas that I'd like to cover just very briefly. We've completely overhauled, we've completely upgraded our automated office systems. We're in the process now of opening a hybrid in-person court appearance system. We installed an intercom system in the lobby, as well as some document exchange trays. So we're going to start seeing defendants in person. We actually intend to open the courthouse itself up for in-person appearances. I believe that once we've done that, our participation will increase dramatically, because Zoom, quite frankly, for court proceedings is not the most efficient method for conducting hearings and trials.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
I just had a question for the judge concerning the supplies that are used for that 160 cover-ups of graffiti. I want to make sure that that's a lot of graffiti being covered up, and I just want to make sure that the line item that you have for supply is sufficient and that we're not running short of supplies. Because I feel like it's very important that as soon as it gets reported, that it get covered up as soon as possible to deter that type of behavior. The longer it sits out there, the happier the guy is that graffitied it. So the sooner it gets covered up, the better it is for the whole community. So I'm wondering if you're okay with that line item and with the amount that you're giving up for that.
At present, I can't give you the exact figure, but yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Because in addition to our line item, we also have a pretty good stock of equipment and supplies.
I'm actually taken a little bit aback by the number that you gave, because I did go through all the photos, but I didn't realize that it was in a condensed period of time. I thought this was over a period, a bigger, longer period of time. So the number that you gave out, it's sort of surprising how much graffiti is going on in the community. And to be honest with you, very disappointing.
I agree with you, Counselor.
Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you. Chair. On that note on the graffiti, is there any collaboration with investigating to see if they're able to find out who is doing this graffiti? If that, if they're labeling using the same type of signature or something that they can actually catch these people that are doing that?
That's a very good question, and the best answer I can give you is this. There was one individual who was a major graffiti defendant, if you will, because he was identified. But in terms of outright, in-depth, extensive investigations into graffiti violators, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. I know that I don't get very many, if any, graffiti defendants come before me. So now.
Counselors, anything else? Your Honor, you may continue if you've got anything else, sir.
Yes, I guess I will address our database. We have what is known as sleuth. That's our system that we store all of the data for all defendants, present, past, and future. And sleuth is over 20 years old. It is actually starting to fail. We're having to call the maintenance people to repair problems that we get, and we're getting them a little more frequently. For example, we're yesterday or the day before, one of the clerks tried to enter citations. I mean, simple act, enter 4 citations into sleuth. He couldn't do it. What happened is he'd enter the citations and then move to the next page, and sleuth would immediately erase the citations. So we had to call the sleuth personnel to repair the problems. And we're having those problems quite frequently now. So we're exploring 3 alternatives at this point. We're exploring Tyler, Odyssey, and Home Court. Those are the more modern, the more up-to-date systems. And those are the ones used primarily by the majority of the more up-to-date courts in the state of New Mexico. We'd like to see if we can get a reasonable quote from Tyler, but if not, we may have to go with Home Court.
Honorable Martinez, question for you. So regarding these new systems, is there an approximate cost that you guys have explored right now that the court's looking at spending?
Not at this time. We've made contacts with these individuals, and we've scheduled appointments for demonstrations, and we've asked for estimates but I can tell you that it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood, and I don't know that our budget will be able to handle this, but to replace the system, to migrate the data, and then to maintain it, it's gonna be in the neighborhood, I estimate, of $30,000 to $35,000. It's gonna take 6 months, approximately 6 months, for example, just to migrate the data. So we're gonna have to have both systems up for 6 months while we shut one down and then get the other one running.
Right. And Honorable City Manager and Your Honor, I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, this is obviously a much needed database or upgrade, should I say. I know you did state in your presentation that the mayor and city manager had unfroze, I guess, the clerk position or you're going to be advertising for it. Wouldn't it be wise to utilize that position to update the system first and then bring back that position? Just a little curious on the funding, et cetera, for this, just so we can get things going. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez?
I feel like the position was unfrozen because of the money that came back, correct? And I don't think that this is something that would cover. So I think, I'm not sure, but I'll let him touch base on that. But I really feel like this is an investment. We also had the 40,000 in vehicles that we sold in surplus. That 40,000 is available for something like this, and I feel like
Perfect.
this is a very good investment for that type of a situation without us having to pull out of another line item.
Sure, absolutely. Let's do it. I just want to get this done. If it's something that we need, let's do it.
I agree. I don't think this is something we need to wait till it fails. We need to act on it.
Right.
Right.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, honorable judge, we're also going to be updating our infrastructure capital improvement plan, the ICIP. And that's where we draw to present to legislature for funding. I mean, that could be another source as well if there's no other means to proceed on this. But to chime in with Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez said, the unfreezing of the positions were coincides with how our budget was affected for 2020, or I guess FY21 in COVID. So that's why we were, it's justified because we did freeze those positions because of COVID. So reinstating those positions of COVID, it fell in lieu with justification on the ARP funding. However, I mean, we did go through some audio video equipment for chambers to be able to stream the council meetings live so we can get rid of the laptops. That was also through ARP funding. So, but a lot, we only had a portion of that funding to proceed. I know that the majority of that was going to be used for getting some of the infrastructure projects for shovel-ready purposes. Hopefully now in the fall, when President Biden's a huge infrastructure bill, hopefully it passes and we kind of have something to look forward to. But there are other means, like I said, we'll touch with a honorable judge in regards to updating the ICIP. So when next year for the legislature, like I said, before you know it, it's just around the corner. We're already going into the second week of August. Time is flying really quick. And that'll be another an opportunity for funding to fund this program.
Right. Well, I just hope that it lasts, and hopefully our representatives and senators out there do help out with this. But I just want to get it done. It's something that needs to get done, and trying to figure out any which way avenue we can do it. Let's do it. I think it's that simple.
And if I can just briefly respond to your question, sir, with regards to the court clerk, we absolutely need that position. We've started breaking down the cases, and we find that they actually go back as far as 1999, I believe we found some cases there. But anyway, we've got a ton of cases and warrants that we've started now addressing that problem specifically. And the clerk that comes on board, that's going to be one of his or her primary responsibilities.
Sure, absolutely. And again, I'm in no way, shape, or form against the position itself. I just want to make sure that you guys have the systems and everything that you need to function correctly.
Understand.
Counselors, any questions, comments, concerns for Your Honor?
Just want to thank, go ahead,
Go
Councilor.
ahead, sir.
I just want to thank His Honor for all that he's doing. The courts are obviously moving in the right direction, and I thank you, sir, for all your hard work that you're doing, sir.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez?
I'll echo Councilor Martinez's remarks concerning the job that you're doing. Yeah, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you taking the reins over there and handling that situation as professionally as you have, with all the knowledge that you've gained throughout your life. And we're totally blessed to have you there, Mr. Martinez, and I really appreciate the job that you're doing.
Thank you, Counselor.
Echoed on my end, so I told you personally, thank you for all your professionalism and organizational. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Your Honor. We appreciate you. Have a good evening.
You too. You as well.
All righty, next up under our department reports, we have planning and land use and Ms. Justina Trujillo. If you're with us, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody, members of the committee. We'll wait for those stats to go up. Okay, so I'm just gonna let them get scrolled through, and if anybody has any questions, I'm here for any questions you have.
Sure. Counselors, questions, comments, concerns for planning and land use? Counselor Ricci, I see that hand kind of waving. I don't know if it's up yet or not.
Just wanted to know that, so maintaining the schedule for code enforcement, we're still able to follow the schedule that has been established?
Yes, so we're still doing the 2-week schedule twice a month. So these are all of this is all the activity for the month. And one thing that we've been working on is actually getting some maps. Robert, our GIS analyst, has been helping out a lot with that. If you scroll down to that last slide, I believe it is, we're trying to do a better job of tracking where violations are based on neighborhoods and yeah, just any activity that's been going on throughout that 2-week period, twice a month.
And Mr. Sina, I've got a question. So what are we doing for repeat offenders in the sense, the last 3 years 3.5 years that I've been on this governing body, I get the same complaint every year when weeds come about, and this individual is a repeat offender, and weeds are over 4 foot tall and at some points. What are we doing for repeat offenders?
So for repeat offenders, we generally just send out the first notice again. And one thing that we are tracking, and we remind the individuals that are, frequently getting violated for the weeds, is that, hey, this is something that you need to keep up with every month. And we're still giving them, the grace period, the 10 to 14 days, so that they can fix the situation. And as far as the individual that I believe you're speaking of, I have spoken to him on multiple occasions, and we do seem to have an understanding that he should be keeping his yard and the weeds down. But as far as kind of like anything that we have for repeat offenders, we don't really have anything. What I do is, instead of keeping track on just one case file, I'm gathering multiple case files so that I can say, hey, we violated you this month of last year, this year, past years. You need to get it together, but they're usually pretty good. One thing that I have been trying not to do is give extensions, just because it's kind of like, hey, okay, you've been repeating for how long? I don't think you kind of deserve an extension at this point. And they seem to understand.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one eyesore that concerns me all the time, and it deals with the old Hunter building, and not so much, not the Hunter building over here where they sold vehicles, but the Hunter Tractor building on Riverside Drive. And it deals with the area where they have all the stored wrecked vehicles and all that stuff. It looks horrendous. It's a terrible eyesore. That area is sort of getting cleaned up. I don't know if you guys have noticed that they're redoing the building there. That was the old thrift store. They're plastering it, putting new windows, and then they redid the building before that. That was the old pool hall that was there a long time ago. And that just looks so nice. And then you continue to drive to the other side or look over the wall there, and man, there's cars all over the place. There's buses, there's wrecked stuff. The other thing that concerns me is that it seems like some of those vehicles are dropping oil on that property that's very close to the aquifer, very close to the river. So that concerns me also. And I just really am wondering what the heck we could do there. So could you touch base on that issue for me, please?
So I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely positive, which I'm still better at addressing. But if you wouldn't mind getting that address written down, if you could figure out which address it is, that way I can take a look at it, because it might be something that I'm already working on. And if not, I can look back through ordinances, and I can look back through any previous meetings from years before. Because sometimes the problem is that a lot of these places that continue to look like that were permitted at some point, which is kind of hard for me to rule over. I'm still trying to I've been working with the PD. I actually spoke to Lieutenant Trujillo this afternoon about some stickering that we've been doing. And we're trying to get a better grasp of things that we can do for inoperable vehicles. But that just seems to be one of the situations that kind of keeps coming up, that we don't really have a big hammer to come down with. So it's definitely something that I'm working on, and I can definitely take a look at the building that you're talking about.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you. Follow up. Now that you're talking about inoperable vehicles and the such, oh God, don't get old, guys. Sierra Vista up here by the hospital, the established resident neighborhood where there's homes that sort of all look alike across from the park. There's an area at the top that has a mailbox there. And there's a gentleman that parks his vehicle, a truck with a trailer, sometimes right in front of that mailbox. And it makes it really difficult for elderly people or the handicapped people from that neighborhood to get to their mailbox. I'm wondering if the city couldn't possibly make that a no park zone so that it's a little bit easier for those people to do that. And then the other thing that I've noticed is that there are times when people are parked right in front of the hydrant or right across the hydrant on a very narrow street. So it scares me that there could be a fire and we wouldn't have the ability to move one of those vehicles and connect properly and stuff like that. And then on Coronado, right off of East Buena Vista, there's a vehicle that has been inoperable parked there for about 3 weeks. It's very difficult for people coming in and out of that street to try and negotiate whether or not there's oncoming coming on Coronado coming from the south side. So just those things, you know, as always, we certainly appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. It's evident from the map that you're all over our community. And believe you me, we so need you and probably another code enforcement officer. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. On the note of Counselor Martinez, on that place of business, I know that we kind of brought that up before, and they had mentioned that because of the zoning, they were allowed to have those vehicles. But my question is, if the initial business comes in and asks for a business license, let's say to sell tires, and all of a sudden, because they're selling tires, now they have 50 vehicles on their property, that kind of changes the realm of what the business was intended for when they signed up for that business license. So I don't know if that would maybe be a way of looking into this particular business and saying, wait a minute, you guys this isn't what this was initiated for. It might be a way of looking at it that they might be violating a code, or at least violating a planning and zoning for considering the business that was implied. And on that note, I don't have the correct address for you, and I can email it to you, but it is my understanding that there is a property actually off of South McCurdy that initiated a permit to build a shed, and that shed has turned into a major apartment or homes that they actually have several people living in there. And I only know that because through my work, they were requesting another meter and they weren't allowed to do that, but they're upgrading their homes, the first home, to like a 300 amp service in order to be able to supply enough power to the house behind it. So I don't know if that's something that you'd be able to check. I can get you the address on that and I'll email it to you to see what's going on, to see if it's properly permitted. And because I know as far as where I work, they don't look at what the intent was. All they do is, as long as the permits are required for an upgrade, they'll just do it. So with that, I don't know if this is something as far as a code, to add a code to land and plan use, because my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that if a new service comes in or a new building, they're required permits are required from the city. But if the home is just upgrading something, in this case, upgrading a meter loop to a 200 amp service, 100 amp, 200 or 300 amp, there's no requirement for the city to go back and inspect it. So they can actually come in at that point and, request the building of a shed and then go back later to HEMIS and ask them for a meter loop for a building. And because there's no requirement for an upgrade, the city never knows what they actually built. So I don't know if that's something that we need to look at moving forward of seeing so that this type of stuff doesn't happen.
Right, that would make sense. And I believe I know which property you're talking about. And forgive me if I didn't respond to the email that you might have sent for 741 South McCurdy. We have been working with the property owner's wife, and myself and Vince, our permit tech, actually went out there and, physically walked into the building, walked around it and such like that. And it didn't look to us like anybody was living inside of it. So we kind of just ruled that one out.
Okay, that actually came from some of the neighbors that live in the area, that's what they said they saw. So that's why I brought that up.
Counselor Peggy Sue.
I was just on Google Maps looking for the address of that previous concern that I have. It says 201 or 206 Paseo de Oñate. So it's the building that's right before Calle Alamosa, the old Hunter Tractor building. Okay.
Just north of it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And if I may, Councilor Martinez, that adjacent property that they were also selling vehicles before that had that double wide on it, I know that they did retire that service, electrical service for that property, so I'm assuming that they're cleaning that up as well.
That's Santa Clara. That's that belongs with that double wide. That needs to get, I don't know what we can do.
All righty. Ms. Justina and Counselor Richie, this kind of goes under your purview, Justina, but question is North Central Solid Waste, I know anybody can take waste, but are businesses permitted to do that as well? Because there's a business here, there's actually multiple businesses that people have been posting about that their dumpsters and everything are overfilling. So I'm wondering what we're doing as planning and land use with these businesses and letting them know their options of taking their trash if it's acceptable.
Right now, within the city, if you're not getting service, you can take it and we will not charge you at the transfer station.
Okay, great. And Ms. Justina, I'm not sure if you're aware, but for example, Guadalupe Credit Union, I granted, I'm not sure if that's city property or not, but there's multiple businesses around that have just overflowing trash out of their dumpsters. So I'm wondering if what we're doing, issuing citations or telling them, hey, go take your trash to the transfer station.
I just have to say that everybody on that side is waiting for you and the mayor to pick up.
Okay.
Get your trailers ready.
I'll get the trailer ready.
On that note, could the city parks or streets be used to help people that don't have the ability to take their trash to the transfer station? Considering that they are being charged for it already.
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Councilor Manny Martinez. So in that note, I know that when the last time the North Central Solid Waste had an issue with fleet and they were behind, we were waiting for their management to kind of ask for our help because we don't want to kind of overstep our boundaries and then, go and pick up the trash and then they start doing the route and they kind of double back on areas where we were done it. So we kind of wait for North Central to reach out for us for our assistance. And I posted that to the manager Fuller on that. So, but yeah, we're gonna wait for them to kind of reach out to us for our assistance.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you, Mr. Stina. Do you have anything else for us?
I believe that's it, if that's all for questions.
All righty. Thank you, counselors. We have a tentative meeting scheduled for September 1st. Everybody go to that date? Counselor Peggy Sue? All righty. We will shoot for the 1st. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.